Stride TV is now available to download on the App Store. Watch exclusive videos like Fem Forte, Inside Drum Corps, Charity Chase, and so much more. Go to stridetv.com and use code FemForte to get 50% off premium features like community chat, live Q&A with me, and behind-the-scenes content. Stride TV is home of the arts, a dedicated media platform for the arts community. Fem Forte is sponsored by Ultimate Drillbook. UDB app modernizes marching band. Spend less time, have more fun, and achieve at a higher level. Just upload your drill from Pyware into the UDB app, and everyone in your band gets animations with your show music, precise pathways, synced music, notes, props, and so much more. It's just easier. Head to ultimatedrillbook.com and use code FEMFORTE when you order to get 20% off UDB App Pro. Warning, this episode briefly talks about suicide. Viewer and listener discretion advised.
When the business is going to be the business, but what you have control over is your own art in terms of your commitment to it and your commitment to growth. And so I would say that is the foundation of everything.
Welcome to Fem Forte, a podcast where we celebrate women in music and performing arts. I'm your host, Amanda DeFries. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you are new here, I'm your host, Amanda DeFries. I cannot express how deeply excited I am to share this episode with you. Today, I am joined by Nicole Pacent. Nicole Pacent is an actress and producer best known for her roles in Westworld, Criminal Minds, Call Me Kat, Anyone But Me, and previously co-hosted the Coming Out Pod. We talk about her journey from stage to the screen, along with the impact she has made in queer media. It has been an absolute dream come true getting to sit down with Nicole, and I can't wait for you all to hear her story. Welcome back to another special episode of Fem Forte. Today, I have a very special guest with me. We have actress Nicole Pacent. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am just so excited to just dive in. As I've kind of spoken previously to you before, you are an icon to me. You're an inspiration. And it's just so awesome to be here in LA and to get to meet you personally in person. It is such an honor. Like I said, I first discovered you through actually the Anyone But Me series. Mm-hmm. And then the Coming Out Pod, and I've seen you guest star in some of the shows that I've watched. So it's just... I'm just so ready to dive in and to hear your story, but I know who you are. But go ahead and tell our listeners who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. Yes, so I'm Nicole Pacent. I am an actress first and foremost, though I am also a writer. I am I guess, former podcaster at this point, but I'm sure also a future podcaster. I can't get away from the medium. I consume podcasts like water, so it's only a matter of time before I'm hosting one again. And I am also a long time queer media creator and advocate. I have been, as you said, in Anyone But Me. I was cast right out of college in Anyone But Me, which was a queer coming of age story at a time when we really didn't have anything like that. So it was 2008. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I have been out as bisexual since I was 15. So it's been a minute. But yeah, in my current life right now, I am on Criminal Minds. I play Rebecca Wilson, who is also queer. Yay! Yes. And in an off again, on again, will they, won't they, with Aisha Tyler's character Tara. So anyway, so that's my current gig, and I've been on Westworld and Blackish and Call Me Kat and a bunch of stuff. So yeah, that's what I do, and I do theater and I sing, and yeah.
Where did you first discover your passion for theater and acting in general?
Literally, there's not been a time that I can remember in my life that I haven't been singing and acting. It's been that long. So I started singing before anything else. I really fell in love with musical theater. I fell in love with musicals. I mean, we were also, the kids of the Disney Renaissance, you know? So I the first musical I fell in love with was The Little Mermaid. You know, still to this day, my favorite song, I hate this phrase, but gun to my head, favorite song of all songs is probably Part of Your World from Little Mermaid. Yes. I think it's a perfectly written song.
That's my go-to karaoke song. I kid you not.
Yeah, it's so good. It's really just the best. But like I fell completely in love with musicals from that point on. And also my mom like would go to musicals and get the soundtracks and bring them home and we'd listen to them and things like that. So I was starting to do musical theater from the time that I was 3. And then I branched out into straight acting, which is what we call non-musical acting, when I was 15. And like luckily I had like we had a really robust theater program in my like public high school. It just happened that way, which was wonderful. And we did 8 shows a year. And so I got like a lot of experience there doing Shakespeare and straight plays and different musicals and improv and writing my own work and things like that. So, and then I went to NYU for theater. So it's literally, I've been doing it since I could talk. Yeah. It chose me, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's probably the way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And now we're obviously here in LA and you've done like a lot of Hollywood, like on screen acting. So what made you want to transition from being on stage and doing plays and musicals to like really being in front of the camera?
Sure. So I've always wanted to do both. I've found like I'm been in love with movies and movie magic since I was really young. I was just telling you off camera that I introduced my son to E.T. last night. And for me, like that's the kind of stuff where you're just like, that is the epitome of beautiful storytelling and movie magic and the way that you kind of also indoctrinate kids. I say indoctrinate, but like, you know what I mean? Like introduce kids to what is possible through film, you know,
Yes.
And the story that like just breathtaking storytelling. So I really have always had a fascination with film. But in terms of like, as a medium for acting, I knew I wanted to do it, but I did not do anything in front of the camera until really anyone but me. Like, genuinely. I mean, like a student film here or there, you know, but like that was it. So for me, it was part and parcel because I was always interested in the medium. But it was also very strategic in the sense that, so I graduated college the year before the double whammy of the 2008 recession and 2008 writer's strike. So there was nothing. I mean, anyone but me actually came, which was a web series, right? Came out of the writer's strike because we had television writers who couldn't write for TV.
Yeah.
And then found the web, and it was like kind of the Wild West at that point. Anything goes, and they could do whatever they wanted. And so anyone but me came out of that. But essentially, like I was in New York after graduating, auditioning for like the precious few things that weren't just getting shut down because of funding, like lack of funding or whatever. And because the shows needed publicity and needed to get butts and seats, they were casting TV and film actors in roles that would have traditionally gone to theater actors. And so I'm like, I already know I love LA. I already know I do want to do film and TV. What am I doing here waiting at this equity opening call for a role that I know that Katie Holmes is already cast in?
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
what is happening? And so that was a really like fundamental moment for me where I kind of looked at the tides and I was like, there's more work in LA. There's going to be at least once the strike is over, and I can always keep doing theater. But if I make a name for myself in film and TV, I'm going to get theater opportunities more easily.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of everything. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, as we all know, like anyone making the move to LA is huge. So how did you necessarily keep that momentum up and keep exploring and seeking out opportunities even after that you had finished filming that series?
So yeah, good question. I mean, it is like to any actors out there, any future actors, any whatever. It is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
That's the things I wish I was told. No, but truly, it like genuinely is. I mean, for me, I knew it was going to be a grind. You grow up and say, I want to be an actor, and everyone goes, that's really hard.
Yeah.
You know, like, so that's you're expecting it, but there's a difference between the expectation and the lived reality of that.
Exactly.
And so for me, it was just, I have to say, I am such a dork about the craft of acting. I love it so much that even now I am in class every week. I have a coach who I see. I've done different classes here and there with different teachers and whatever, and felt like I've gotten a lot from various people. But I've had this one coach now for almost 7 years. And when I'm not working, I'm in class every week, just exercising like it's the gym, and bringing in what I want and seeing what's not working. And so for me, there was a time where it was hard, like things were slow, and it was part and parcel because I needed to work on my audition technique and really be honest about what wasn't working, what was working when I was performing and when I was on stage and then what wasn't working in my tapes and my auditions, and kind of close that gap, right? So like part of it was just maturing as an artist and continuing to work at it. But the other thing too was there was definitely a pigeonhole thing happening that I had done queer media, right?
Yeah.
And that was not a cool thing to be doing at the time. I mean, you have to remember this is like 2008 was also when like Prop 8 happened. I mean, so we're talking, marriage was still illegal, So in this business, it wasn't cool to be like, well, here's my gay show I was just on, and oh, here's another. But I was getting opportunities in queer media. So what I did while I was working on my craft and while I was honestly kind of waiting for like the industry to catch up to, society and culture and things, I was working a lot in queer media. Like it really was a savior for me because I found like a loyal fan base and people within that niche, filmmakers who wanted to work with me, who had seen my work in Anyone But Me. And so while I was auditioning for bigger stuff, while I was honing my technique, I was working in queer media, and that was a real saving grace, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you talk a lot about your love for acting and specifically in queer media, but where does that love come from? Like what fulfills you most about being able to be an actress?
Oh man. I think it's probably changed over the years. When I was younger, it was like the just electricity of being on stage, that like feeling so alive, and it still is. Like that feeling is just second to none. That the like hit you get from live performance for me. But as I've gotten older, so much of it is about being able to tell the truth in a really raw and vulnerable way, I mean, which is why I love storytelling in many different mediums, and why I had a podcast for so long, because I'm not a surface level person, and it has been a journey for me to allow myself to really inhabit other people's truths and truths that I am feeling very deep down and don't want to show via characters. It's been a wonderful challenge and so fulfilling and so cathartic. I've had teachers say like, acting isn't therapy, but it's therapeutic. And I think that is a really good way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah. And just, I love writing and being able to speak awesome words. Like just to me, being able to act a beautiful piece of writing is such a gift to bring that alive. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could relate to even just being a performer myself. Like myself, I'm a musician and I play percussion, and I can totally understand it in terms of expressing yourself, whether it's through music, whether it's through words, for acting, and just the gift of storytelling and the art of storytelling in so many different facets and mediums.
Yes.
That I relate to wholeheartedly. I mean, let alone this podcast. One of the things that I have found a huge love for, specifically in podcasts, is being able not only to interview amazing guests like yourself, but also getting to create connections with people I would have never connected with before.
Yes.
And also, not only are you sharing the gift of being able to share someone else's story, but we're also creating like a story ourselves throughout this whole entire experience. So yes, I totally understand from where you come from of the artist storytelling, and for you primarily it's through acting. Like, it's such a beautiful thing.
Oh my God. And it's also, it really is something I didn't say, but that I thought of when you were, based on what you were saying, is like just the electricity, the way in which you're able to connect with a scene partner and that like immediate in the moment sort of shared like ping pong that's happening is so good. And it throws you so into the present, right? Like I feel like in so many ways, even when the present is painful, there is a satisfaction of being in the present that you really can't get from anything else. And I feel like acting, if you're really committed to doing it justice, puts your feet to the fire to be in the present, you know? Yeah.
So you say that, you know, how you mentioned earlier that acting is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Throughout, I mean, as you mentioned before, throughout these awesome opportunities that you've been able to get through being on screen in multiple different projects, like for someone who wants to make that same change of moving to LA and being an actor, what is that biggest piece of advice of creating these opportunities and seeking the right people to network with and so on?
Very good question. I'm constantly like I do acting coaching for younger folks too, specifically folks who are auditioning for college programs. So I'm constantly trying to like give them my little nuggets of wisdom and being like, no, you're not going to listen to all this because you know, you got to learn it for yourself. I get it. But I'm constantly like, I wish that I could tell you. So I mean, I think it's a few things. I mean, I recognize that school, you know, whether that's conservatory or just week to week class or whatever, I recognize school isn't for everybody. There is not a one size fits all approach to art in general, and certainly not acting. So I wouldn't be like, be in school, you know, like, you know, you gotta do that. But I can say for me and for those of us for whom acting school or acting class feels like a great place to experiment and learn and grow, I just cannot emphasize enough how much of a game changer it can be to just stay in class, to find a coach who really, really, really knows you and gets you, and also is not afraid to say where you need to grow. And that's the other thing is like, if you're unwilling to, it's hard to look at what's not working. It's hard to admit that there's something that we're not strong at. I mean, this is true in our whole lives, right? But like certainly in our art, it's really hard to go, oh, I'm not really killing it in that area. You know, like I need to work on my sitcom skills, or I need to work on like this, or like I can't cry in front of camera. I can't, like whatever it is, you know, I'm too in my head. I'm too, whatever it is, like being willing to go back to the mat and go, okay, this isn't working. What do I need to shift? How do I shift that? And experimenting, right? So like when the business is going to be the business, but what you have control over is your own art in terms of your commitment to it and your commitment to growth. And so I would say that is the foundation of everything. And then on top of that, in terms of networking, you know, like I think most of us bristle at like just the word networking. We're like, oh God, I know. I mean, I know I did. One of the best pieces of advice like I ever got insofar as networking was concerned was from my industry teacher who was like a longtime manager and producer. Got this like, senior year of college. We were talking about networking and I was like, I don't know. I don't want to be at an event and go up to somebody and seem smarmy and see, can I swear on this? Okay. And seem like an asshole, right? Yeah. Like I was like, I don't want to seem like an asshole. I just feel like I'm like, how do you talk to people? Whatever. And my teacher stops and he goes, wait a second. Are you an asshole? And I was like, I don't think I'm an asshole. And he goes, you're not an asshole. He was like, if you're worried about that, immediately I know you're going to be okay. He was like, it's the people who don't even stop, they have no self-awareness, who are going to not do favors for themselves in rooms, right? Who are not going to be able to just talk to people like people. Just talk to people like people. I mean, that's so much of it is it's relationship building, right? So like thinking about it like, you know, I want people to come see my play. I'm going to go see their play. You know, I'm in a theater company, and the reason that I'm in the theater company is because I was a fan of that theater company first. And I went to every single play of theirs, and I stayed after, got drinks with them, got to know them, you know, publicized for them when I had no skin in the game other than I was like, I want to work with these people. And so we appreciate when people show interest in us and our work. That's the other piece of advice. Just show interest in other people's work, support their work, and then you get to know them. And if the chemistry is right, you know, you'll work together at some point. So,
yeah, that is very beautifully said. And I could not agree with that more. I have learned even through building out this podcast and getting guests on, like it's all about the upliftment. And that's what the power of what this podcast provides is simply, I love sharing the spotlight and highlighting people who I truly believe in, sharing their story. And yes, this podcast is my baby and it's my show, but really when I have the opportunity to speak, it's really to find the deeper story behind my guest and talk about their experiences. And that's the beautiful thing is that's what fulfills me most about my life. That is what has brought so much joy in my life is seeing that appreciation, that love and sharing that love and story with other people it's so cool because previous guests who have been on my show, like they get all the love in social media and people who have never even heard of specific people. Now all of a sudden they get more visibility and get to see them in their work. And that's what I love is being able to provide that service of sharing that spotlight and highlighting people's cool stories and experiences.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Thank you for doing that because it's true, right? Like we all get better, we all feel better, we all learn more when we're exposed to other people's stories and other people's art, and it just feels good to lift everybody up. Do you know what I mean?
That's
like,
what this is literally all about.
Like what? Yeah, like all the what is that? Ships rise together. I don't know. There's like some sort of, you know what I mean? Like we all like doing that is just it's fantastic. Yeah.
United we stand, divided we fall. Because the classic quote says,
but it is accurate. Anyway,
but also another point to that is like you said, treating people as human beings. I think a lot of it too is I talk a little bit about this on the show where a lot of people are scared to network simply because a huge thing I have learned myself is, especially being as young as I am, I used to put people who were like older than me or had more experience than me on this pedestal and like have this different power dynamic. And as I've gotten older and have done the show a couple of times, like I've learned the beauty of being as equals and just having a conversation brings so much of the story out so naturally versus like it being this very strict like level thing. And people can tell and see that.
Yeah, it definitely like I understand having reverence, whether it's because of age or, perceived wisdom or perceived talent or whatever it is. Like I certainly have, reverence for certain people and will, I'm certainly feel more nervous in their presence than other people. And that's fine. But I think like just remembering that first of all, everybody has a story. Secondly, like, everyone goes to sleep at night and gets up in the morning and has their little routine and has a million things that they're worrying about and that they're juggling. And like, no matter how famous you are, no matter how accomplished, this is all still true. Like, it's all just still true. And I would say that people with a certain level of fame or notoriety or whatever probably appreciate more than anyone just being treated like a person. That can be extremely alienating when people are constantly putting you on a pedestal and not talking to you as an equal. Yeah. And because they're seeing you as something that it's an idea of you, it's not you, Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned a good point earlier about when you have talked to like other younger actors and finding that source of growth and being okay to admit when something's not working, possibly changing it. What was the biggest source and pinnacle moment of growth for you?
Oh man, there have been so many. I mean, it's hard to say, like, especially, I think this is true of all art, right? It's certainly true of acting, but I believe this is true of just all art. Your life experience and what you go through, as long as you allow it to, inevitably influences your growth as an artist and what you're bringing into your work, right? It's just adding to the toolbox. And so it's almost a two-pronged question, because I feel like my life and what I have gone through, just on a personal level, has deeply influenced and been major turning points, has brought about major turning points in my art. But then there's also stuff that is purely the business that has done that too, that has like put my feet to the fire. So I would say, like, I'll give two answers to that. On the personal level, when I was 3 days after my 30th birthday, my sister took her own life. So that was, I mean, essentially it's like part one and part two of my life, right? Like before that happened and then after that happened. And it is hard to overstate just how fundamentally that reordered my insides and my priorities and the way I saw the world, my level of empathy too. I mean, something like that happens and it's like, on the one hand, it's this paradox because it like completely shatters your heart, and your heart somehow also grows exponentially.
Yeah.
It starts to include more people and more experiences, and it's just an enormous paradigm shift. And so that was a huge turning point for me, artistically as well. Over the next several years, it just it continues to influence everything. So I would say that in terms of my maturity. And then the other thing, which happened a year and a half after that, 2 years after that, I was with a manager who was awesome. I had gotten more media auditions over the year that I was with her than like any time prior. It was that I'd signed with her, and I was like, when I signed with her at, I was 31, no, just almost 31. And I was like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. These are the opportunities. It's great. And like, I felt like she saw me and she understood me. It was great. And I had some success right out of the gate with her. And then I started putting way too much pressure on myself. I was also still this was very soon after my sister passed, so I was also still really dealing with a lot of like trying to hold my breath just to get through the day and not fall apart. And when you're holding your breath in life, you're holding your breath in your art. You can't just stop.
Yeah.
If you're not breathing through your whole day, you can't just get in front of a camera and be like, oh, well, now I can breathe. Like it's a practice like anything else. So the culmination of the amount of pressure I was putting on myself to deliver like great performances and book jobs and whatever, and then the amount of pressure I was putting on myself to keep it together so that I didn't just completely break down as a human, culminated in, she ended up dropping me. The manager dropped me. And it was like devastating, but I had known it was coming essentially because it had been like 6 months since not only I booked something, since I'd even gotten a call back. And it was such a low point for me because I was like, I don't have reps for the first time in years. Mm-hmm. I am still picking up the pieces from my sister's death. There's clearly something in my art that isn't working. And I had just started with the coach that I'm with now. And I made a choice that I was going to not audition for 6 months at least, because I had found that I was having this like Pavlovian response when auditions would come through my email, is I would have an immediate panic response. I would go into like fight or flight mode immediately. Yep. And so I was like, no, I need to step away and just work on my craft and get back to why I love this. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And I ended up, it was like 8 months later, I got another agent. I felt very ready. That agent didn't have the connections that I needed. And I ended up then a little less than a year later switching to signing with another agent. I dropped my agent. I signed with another agent, and I'm still with that agent today. And now I have a fantastic management team as well. And so like I cannot emphasize enough how okay it is to step away and take a minute and recalibrate your art and your life and allow yourself to just like be and be gentle and experiment in spaces where there aren't any stakes, where it's not a make or break, where it's not about getting a job, where it's not about impressing somebody. It's just about your own growth and calibration. So that was a huge turning point for me. Again, in my career, it's like been before I took that break, after I took that break.
Yeah. And honestly, I could not resonate with that anymore because I actually don't talk a lot about this on the podcast, but you mentioned the importance of taking a break, and I could easily relate it to my life. So when I wanted to be a music major in college, I actually changed majors. I think it was middle of sophomore years when I made that change. And the reason why I made that change is because I got a lot of imposter syndrome. I played drums, and at the time, I went from a high school where I was a big fish in a small pond to now a small fish in a big pond.
Totally get that.
And that was a huge transitional point for me, both career and life-wise. Mm-hmm. And of course, in college, like when you're discovering yourself, there's just a lot of stuff going on. But it got to the point where I was like practicing and so ingrained in music so much. And I was, and I still am very passionate about music and the arts, the reason why I am in the position I am in now. But I would practice in the practice room so much where I lost the fun. And it got to a point where I was in a very low mental health space. And like I said, this is my first time mentioning this on the pod, but I actually did take an attempt on my life. And I'm glad that never panned out the way that it did. And I learned that since changing my major and my focus to shift more on media, to this day, I think it's still the best thing that has ever happened, because I did take that break and did take that step back. And now I'm in a position where I'm literally blending both my passion of music and media together.
It's awesome.
And it's like so weird how like life works in that way, that when you take a break, like new opportunities like this podcast, and I now play for the Austin Symphonic Band. And so I got back into playing my instrument again. And it's just like such a beautiful thing of like how that works in that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, because we lose sight of why we do this stuff in the first place.
Yep.
When you become the small fish in the big pond, when there is, the pressure to excel, when there's, God knows, the pressure to make money off of your art, when you have, whether it's teachers or parents or a team of representatives or whatever, who are expecting a result from you, it is so easy to lose track of that. Like, why did I love this in the first place?
Yeah.
I loved it because it's play. Yeah. Whether it's playing music or playing a role, it's play.
Yeah.
We did it because you're playing. And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, I'm not playing anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not playing. I'm trying, I'm executing for a result.
Correct.
And it is joyless. Yeah. I think it is so important. And like, and when you're this close to it, you have to step away to find how you want to pursue whatever that is in your life, like where that fits, and to have a sense of play with it. No matter whether you're going to do it professionally or otherwise, it gets just you have to.
Yeah. And so within your career and going through those moments of growth, like, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome as an actress? and with that being said, how are the ways that you navigated through or still navigate through the imposter syndrome? I know for me, I always have imposter syndrome to this day, and it's an ever-going battle, you know?
Yeah, I just don't think it's ever going to go away. Like, luckily, I feel like I just feel like I've created a better relationship to it.
Yeah.
I haven't like banished it because I'm like, well, I don't know that it's ever going to be able to be banished. It's just, I don't know. I think this is a great image that has come to me many times. So I really, as an artist, I love the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's a really great read. And it's also there's like a mystical element to the way that she thinks about art that I really relate to as well. And one of the images she has about her fear, right? When she's like sitting down to write or whatever, and that voice in the head to make it this scared, right? To put the idea out there, or it's telling you it's stupid, or that's whatever, you know, or the imposter syndrome, all of that, right? She's like, I feel like when I start something, I'm getting in the car, it's like a road trip. And I'm not telling fear that it can't come, because fear is gonna come, but I'm never letting it drive. Ever. It's gonna sit in the back seat. I am driving. It's there. I might hear it sometimes, but it's never gonna drive. And that's very much, I feel like, what I try to do when it comes to imposter syndrome now, is going like, okay, noted, this is how I'm feeling. But I'm going to try anyway. I'm just going to try it. Like, the most recent example of this in my life, I think, was probably I did a play, an immersive play that was just so soul-filling and incredible. This past fall, it was such a wonderful artistic experience. And I love immersive theater and have wanted to do it for so long. And I got to sing and act and dance. It was just wonderful. But I definitely have imposter syndrome when it comes to dancing, because it is my weakest of my triple threat, like always has been. And I definitely have some PTSD from musical theater auditions where I just like totally effed up the choreography and was like, oh my God, you know, like, so there's that. So I had to just like go, they cast me for a reason, and I'm going to trust them, and I'm just going to keep working at the things that I don't feel confident about. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then it was also a period piece. So it was set in the 1920s. And I've had this thing in my head the past several years that like I don't fit well into like specifically, you know, first half of the 20th century time period. That like that time period is difficult or like doesn't fit well on me, or I don't know. I think it has to do with something a casting director said to me during a workshop once that like they probably never should have said, but it like wormed its way into my brain. Yeah. Anyway. And I really, really had to work through it for about like a month. The first month of this process, I really had to be like, it's okay. You can do this, even if you feel like the cadence, the sort of like a little bit more of the 1920s talk, you know, like if if that feels weird, it's okay that it feels weird. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean you're an imposter. It doesn't mean anything. Just keep going. And then I finally got there, you know? So it's like, it's the freaking imposter syndrome is always going to be there. You know, there are times where I go into an audition and I'm like, well, I don't know how to act. I don't know why I'm here. I've forgotten how to act entirely. Yeah. I'm a fraud and I have no idea what's going to happen when I walk in that door, you know?
Yeah.
And then somehow it comes back. So it's trust and leaping in anyway. You know?
Yeah. And it's crazy how sometimes like your body works in that way where you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this. And somehow on the other side, it was like, oh, actually that was like not bad. Or
yes, where you're like, oh, I'm pleasantly surprised by how I did that. Yeah.
And a really important thing on the podcasting side is sometimes when I'm like in an interview, I'm like so in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm so in the moment and I'm going through all the different questions and what direction I want to take this. And I'll leave feeling pretty good. But the beautiful thing is when I'm in the editing room and actually just listening to it as a third party, as a listener, I'm like, wow, the art of that storytelling actually went way better than I anticipated.
Yes.
And it's so crazy when you take a step back or just look at the journey. Like how they say, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Always.
And that is the beautiful thing about why I love podcasting so much.
Yes, exactly. And like if all you were concentrating on was the result, right? If you were just thinking like, what is my audience going to think? Am I doing this right? Am I whatever? Then you're not present and you're not in process and you're not on the journey. You know, like I think so much of imposter syndrome, of fear, of all of that is doing your best not to concentrate on a result so much because the result is going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
You know, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of transitioning here, I want to talk a little bit about one of the biggest points is activism. Because in our own way, we do a large part of activism in women empowerment, celebrating women. And I know activism, especially in like specifically queer media, is very important to you. And so how has that affected your life and where does that passion really drive from?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say on like just a very fundamental level, I've always been very like keyed into human rights and extremely affected by how people are treated. And I also really credit my mother in part for this because like the golden rule in our house growing up was inclusion. And it was the like, no, everyone in your class is coming to the birthday party. No, you know, like there was, my mom made such a point of talking about how miserable it feels to be left out, right? And to feel othered. And it was something that as a result, I was very aware of and that I never wanted to do to another person. And so even before I realized I was queer, I mean, you know, there was the little spidey sense, you know, that was going off, you know, of course, but like from, you know, many things. You can listen to my former podcast, Coming Out Pod, for that story. But I found myself as I got older, certainly through middle school, as I would hear stories of injustices against gay people, I felt incensed and hurt and frustrated and activated, very activated. And my aunt also, I found out when I was in 5th grade, my aunt is gay. And so that made it personal in a way before I was even able to admit to myself that I was queer. And I remember like in my 8th grade journalism class, choosing to write specifically about Matthew Shepard as that had just happened and the grief and anger that I felt at not just what happened to him, but what was being said in that trial and the fact that like the killer's parents or fathers said that they should get a lesser sentence because Matthew was gay, as though he was less of a human. So it was there. It was there before I ever came out. I felt very passionate about it. And then once I came out at 15, I am just a person who wears my feelings and my identity and my beliefs on my sleeve. I've probably chilled out a lot actually since I'm not as like self-righteous about it anymore. Thank God. Because, you know, like all of us should go through our like, I'm a teenager and I know everything phase. And then like hopefully mature out of that and have like a little humility. So like, you know, but that passion I just always has been there. And so when I came out, I came out like loud, and it immediately made sense internally for me for that to translate into activism. So like, you know, going to gay pride starting when I was 17, like that, I went to the Dyke March first, and that was a protest. You know, it was a wonderful community event where I felt so alive and seen and held, and just like, oh my God, it was amazing. It was like heaven on earth, being surrounded by all those other queer women. But it was also a rallying cry for rights that were being denied. And that just continued for me all through high school, through college. And when I got the opportunity to do Anyone But Me, it was just like, well, yeah, this is completely in line with the way that I live my life. And so from there on, I don't know, it just was naturally what was going to happen, that I was going to get involved on an advocacy and an activism level. It just has felt very inherent to me. I'm, you know, on a macro level, I'm also very, even more than I used to be, very keyed into politics. Yeah, I'm big into political science. I feel very passionate about leadership too. And like, I am a person who would love to run for office one day. So, you know, I don't know. All I can say is that like activism has always been a part of me in general. And being part of the queer community has given me, has helped me find my voice in it. You know, and I have always felt so held and supported by the community that it is something that I've just wanted to always give back to and help hold as well, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say that, in my opinion, you're doing a phenomenal job at that. And if I could speak from personal experience, when I first heard of the Coming Out Pod, it was actually right during the pandemic. I think it existed prior to that, like a year before, but for me, I just got into listening to podcasts, and it was like one of the recommended. And literally from episode 1, I kid you not, I would turn on my phone and have full volume, and then listen to it in the car, listen to it in the shower, like all the time. And it was such a huge part of my coming out story, and very, for me, also really nice that in general, and specifically at that time too, there weren't a lot of resources or like education out there. And so that's one of the reasons why I loved the podcast so much, and still do to this day, is the fact, like you said, highlighting people and sharing stories, but also providing that level of educational resources.
Yes.
Because it does not really exist much in this world. And that's honestly, if I can say, part of the reason why this exists, is providing that
education
for women, and women in performing arts, and women in music. And yeah, I just love being able to provide that in that certain way, just like Coming Out Pod did for me.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for listening. And I'm so glad. And I like that. I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I just, education in general is just so fundamental to our growth as a species.
Absolutely.
And our ability to understand and relate to each other and find hopefully some common ground and peace. It is foundational to all of that. And I think there are some people who are called to educate And I feel that I am one of those people. It is a hat that I like wearing. I don't feel exhausted by it. I feel invigorated by it. And so I feel like, and I know not everybody gets that. Some people feel very drained by it, and that's valid too. And so I feel like if you are called to it, like step up, because we need people who are willing to put on that hat and educate that way. And I'm so proud that Coming Out Pod has served as such a long-standing educational tool, because I mean that's where it came from. Like Lauren and I, my co-host Lauren Flans, and I were volunteering at the LGBT Center in LA, doing group facilitation and social group facilitation. And Lauren had approached me about a podcast and said, you know, I looked for essentially coming out stories, like podcasts, and there was nothing. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, at this point, it's like 2017, 18. And I was like, what? There's no podcast about coming out? And like, I think there was one that somebody had started and like then stopped after 2 episodes or something, you know, like,
Yeah.
So it was sort of just like right time, right place. We got to do this. There's clearly a need for it. So let's do it, you know? Yeah. So anyway, thank you.
Of course. Absolutely. So, and one of the things you mentioned earlier that I know is a major part of your life is your son and being a mom.
Yeah.
And so how has that affected you career-wise? I think in the industry we hear a lot, once an actress like becomes a mom, like it's like a huge thing and it can affect your career in various aspects, whether it's on an artistic level or simply like a logistical level.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting that you're saying that now. So this I also should have included as a major turning point in my career. So because it was and is, and again, like, you know, everything in context, nothing is happening in a vacuum, right? So like everything that was happening with my sister and the maturing and heartbreak and all that from that, and all of the work that I had been putting in on my own craft and on the business side of things or whatever, that all it was the groundwork that was laid before my son was born too. So I can't give my son all the credit, but that said, I mean, I was terrified to have a kid because because of all the reasons that every career-oriented woman is afraid to have a kid. 'Cause it's not just that it takes you out of the game for months on it, and depending on your financial situation, could take you out for a lot longer than that, because this country is woefully unsupportive of families. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I'm going to say about that. Vote for universal healthcare and universal childcare, also healthcare, both things. Anyway, but it's also the fear of how people see you, right? Too. Yeah. Like you shift and it's like, oh, well, now you're a mom, you know, like she's over the hill. There's this expiration date that women have almost foist upon them in terms of their, whether it's attractiveness or their like, their cachet in some way. You go from like, you know, like woman to mom.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying any of this is true. These are the fears that we have because they're founded, right? This is how it's worked for a long time, unfortunately. So I was terrified. Luckily, the pandemic gave me a great excuse. Because it was just like, well, it can't work, so, and I want this baby, so let's do this thing. So it was great. And now I'm, by the way, facing, you know, all those fears all over again in thinking about having a second kid. So those fears have not vanished, even though this worked out great. I still have those fears. So I relate to anybody who's also fearing that stuff. But I can say, not only has my art grown I mean, my heart has expanded so much, right? Birth and death, right? So I think about like the opposite sides of the coin of my sister passing and my son being born, and what that has done to me in terms of my expansion as a human, the expansion of my empathy, my feeling like I'm part of many different clubs that I wasn't before, things like that. Like it cannot help but influence your art and the kinds of roles that you want to take and all of those things. So like, but it also, with having a kid, it's not about you anymore. And what's beautiful is then you can't overthink your shit. You cannot overthink your art. I cannot sit there and do 30 takes of something. I cannot the best example I can give is, so I had 2 hours to do a Westworld audition. And I had gotten the call that I'd auditioned for a smaller part in this episode. Then they called me back for a larger part, but I had 2 hours to get the tape done. And I was in the car 20 minutes from home when I got the call. And so I had my husband, I called him. I was like, first of all, tell me what happened the last 3 seasons of Westworld. I'm not caught up. Secondly, please put together our tape setup so that like I can come home and just like throw on some makeup and do this thing. Yeah. My son at this point was not in daycare yet. He was 7 months old, I think, at this point. Mm-hmm. I got home. I did my best to memorize the lines. We put him in a little, like his little boppy, I forgot what you call it. Anyway, we like set him up in the corner with a bottle. And we were like, okay, we've got 5 minutes. Yeah. Let's do it. Like 10 if we're really lucky. Yeah. We did bam, 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 3 takes of this scene. And I just used all of the adrenaline and the fact that I was on a timeline and the fact that like my kid was going to finish this bottle and then he was going to need me, right? I could not overthink this thing. And I sent in my first take. 3 hours later, I found out I booked the job. And it's like, and that job changed my life and my career. And I know that if I hadn't had that small child who needed me in the corner, I would have way overthought that. I would have over-prepared it. I would have been all up in my head. I would have been thinking, oh my God, this is such a huge job. I need to get this job. You know, it like, I can almost guarantee that I wouldn't have gotten the job. I don't know that for a fact, right? I had honed my skills to a point where I was doing well, but the paradigm and priority shift of I am not the only one here and there are other things that are bigger than this allowed me to put that in that audition and the work in general in the context in which it belongs. And it freed me up so much as an artist and as a person to just be more expansive. And I am so grateful that my life isn't just about me anymore, because it allows me to get out of my own freaking way. And my career has taken off since I had a child. So the exact opposite of what we're always told, the exact opposite of everything I was afraid of. If it is something that you feel called to do and you have all these fears that I have expressed, just do it. Just do it. And also take your own financial situation into account, because we were fortunate enough to be able to pay for daycare eventually. And we were fortunate enough to be able to pay for preschool eventually. So, you know, I will continue fighting for all of you and everyone for universal childcare so that women can do this and have a career and have their children and be full, expansive people and artists. So
absolutely. Yeah. That was so beautifully said. And I'm so glad that and fortunate that you shared that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're about to wrap up here.
Oh.
And so it's, I know,
it went fast.
Yeah. I really, truly have loved our conversation, and I have a
too.
few lasting questions for
Yes, please. I'll try to make it fast.
you. No, you're good. The first one being, what does success mean to you?
Oh, what a great question. Oh, it's getting me emotional thinking about it. I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm experiencing success right now in ways that I've really always dreamed of. And, once you do, by the way, the bar just gets higher and higher and higher. And you always want something else. And you're like, but it's not that yet. It's not that yet. It's got to keep going. Right. So I think success is, I ultimately think success is happiness, being able to achieve happiness and fulfillment no matter where you're at. No matter whether those external goals have been met yet, but that you have a foundation of happiness and fulfillment and love in your life, that to me is success. I really genuinely mean that. Yeah. And I say that still being ambitious as fuck and wanting all of my, all of my goals and all of my career shit and but I really, there will always be something else to achieve in your career. So if you can have that foundation of happiness and love and real fulfillment, no matter what, that's success.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
I ride that same wave with you. I am also ambitious, and while I've spent a lot of time focusing on what's next, what's the new thing, it causes me so much anxiety that I really have learned to just live in the moment way more.
God, yes.
And it's made a huge difference in perspective and being able to relax.
Yes, God, yes. Let yourself be happy and here, just God damn. Because again, there's always going to be something else. Mm-hmm. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah. My next question is, who do you want to be and what experiences do you want to create?
Oh, man. I mean, I want to be Maggie Smith. Can I say that? Who do I want to be? Maggie Smith, Kate Blanchett. Okay, yeah, fine, right. But yeah, yes, and yes, and I honestly, I want to be. I can say that finally, I like myself. Finally, I love myself. I don't love everything about myself. I struggle, and I know there are ways in which I need to evolve. And I guess I want to be the fullest, most expansive version of me that is more and more empathetic and selfless isn't the right word, but I know I need to learn to be less selfish sometimes. So I want to be me, but less selfish. Maybe that's the best way of putting it. Or selfish only in the good ways.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
yeah.
Of course.
And then what was the second part of that?
What experiences do you want to create?
Oh man. I want to create amazing magical travel experiences for my family, me and my family and my partner and partners. That I just adventure, everything I want. That's the underlying thing that I want to happen. I want artistic adventures. I want spiritual adventures. I want travel adventures. I want love adventures. That's what I want to create, is an adventure in my life. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the last but not least question is, knowing the knowledge you have now, what advice would you have told your younger self? Whether that was stepping into acting for the first time, whether that was being a mother, whether that was that pinnacle moment of growth when you decided to change your art.
Oh man. there's so much advice. I think it has to be. Do let your motivating factor for how you walk in the world be what feels good and true to you, not how you want others to perceive you or how you are afraid others are perceiving you. Walk in the world in ways that are weird or different or against the grain, if that's what feels right, and just know that that's going to lead to happiness and get you where you want to go a whole lot faster than trying to prove anything to anybody else.
Wow. You left me incredibly speechless. That was... I love the way that you said that.
I wish I could go back, but here we are, Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. Well, again, it has been such a joy to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Fem Forte. Fem Forte is produced and hosted by me, Amanda DeFries. Music is by Humans Win. To learn more about our guests, sponsors, and to get more resources, go to femfortepodcast.com and follow us on social media at Fem Forte Podcast.